haven't met myself, my name is Michael. So have been a part of Catalyst movement since we started in the start of 2019. And yeah, stoked to be joined by Aaron and Miriam. And we have a much wider team as well, but I can't see any others, but I think just the three of us on tonight. And we're just going to share briefly. I'm going to do a little intro, and then Miriam and Aaron are going to share about a couple of things as well. And so for those that don't know what Catalyst movement is, as I mentioned in the start of 2019, we started the single Catalyst movement, and basically off the verse Matthew 9:37 to 38, and lots of us in our own churches, in our own walks with God, had really seen a ripeness across New Zealand in a ripe harvest and people open to God. And Jesus says to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And so as individuals, we really felt this call to do ministry and really believing for people across New Zealand and young people especially to come to know Jesus like we had in our own walks. And so off the back of that, really a group of us, youth and young adults from a range of different churches, basically started the St. Catalyst movement. And our heart or mission statement with Catalyst movement has always been to save the lost and send the saved. And that sounds very, I guess, youth, young adult focused, or I don't know. It's fun hearing different mission statements and looking at different websites and whatnot. But really simply, we do a lot of outreaches around the country. A lot of barbecues or even just like street evangelism times. And we're really relational in how we do that with conversations with different individuals across the country. But then probably the main thing that we've often done is equip churches and especially youth and young adults to share their faith. And so that's looked like many things over the past 6.5 or so years. We obviously had a big season in COVID, which we'll all remember fondly or not. Depends on our experiences, but we've run a bunch of things. We once came on Prayers One and shared about Catalyst Project, where we gathered about 100. We did this twice in 2022 and 2023. We gathered 100 youth, young adults, and we did some training with them for a couple of days. And then over a long weekend, we all went in different teams to different towns and cities around New Zealand and did outreaches, partnered with local churches, and just really served local churches and things that were happening. And then a main thing we've done over a few years now is a range of national tours right throughout New Zealand. So a lot of us have done most of these, and the biggest one of those was in 2023. We went to 70 towns and cities across New Zealand. So basically every part of the country with more than 4,000 people. And every single place on those tours will maybe do some sort of outreach with local churches, or we'll be with youth and young adult groups, and we'll always just be there to serve what God's doing locally through them, and just really look to encourage them and equip them and sharing their faith where they're placed. And as I say, often when we travel around, we might have 30 or 20 young adults, and most of us come from different churches across the country. And we're really just passionate for this nation and believing for young people to come to know him, but also live out the fullness of who God's called them to be. And so for a range of us as well, we were involved with a single Descend last year, and that's totally separate from Catalyst Movement. It's something that's happened in other nations, these kind of large gatherings, with the heart simply to activate believers in sharing their faith within different mission fields. And a few of us had experienced the fruitfulness of this in other nations. And so basically, most of us with Catalyst Movement, we pretty much laid down our work with Catalyst last year, and we 100% focused on the send. And so we did nothing with Catalyst last year, but we were all involved. And so myself and Miriam especially were some of the key leaders with a few others. And some of you may have heard of the Send last year. We did a bunch of events. So not to talk on for too long, but yeah, the core of those events was these kind of worship times together in unity with a bunch of different churches and young people, but also messages looking to encourage believers and young people to be sharing their faith, and especially in a few key mission fields. So those were high schools, universities, with local communities, serving children, and then international missions. And so a quick snapshot, because I know many of you were praying for us throughout last year. I think looking back, it was such a massive year, but really successful too. And we never try to base things off numbers, but I think often numbers can give us a great report back on how things went and whatnot. And so we ran a few different gatherings across the country last year, and we kind of gathered with about 18,000 people in person. And so we did some big events in May with Francis Chan and some others in like the TSB Arena in Wellington, the Town Hall in Christchurch. We were at Life Centre in Auckland, Gateway in Hamilton, and then Holy Trinity in Tauranga. And then we did this New Zealand tour to 22 regional centres that kind of hosted different regions of the country. And we did this final event at Mystery Creek in the Waikato in November, which was awesome. And a key final thing to say is a big part of the send was these take action moments where young people could respond through these forms to respond to reach these mission fields. And we essentially captured a bunch of data and sent that back to local church pastors to follow up on their own individuals from their churches. And we also worked with a bunch of missional organizations to also help empower and support people to take steps in those areas. And so, again, with some numbers, we saw about 914 youth fill out forms and say they want to commit to reach their high schools. So whether it was to start a group in their high school or be involved in something. And those were from right around the nation. So super encouraging the willingness of young people to do something in their schools. We saw 650 university students want to do something in their universities. 1,580 Kiwis commit to serving children. So that looked like partnership with Open Home Foundation and World Vision and some other, children's focused empowering ministries. We saw 2,700, so the biggest area, commit to reach their local communities, whether they want to be involved in their church's outreach or programs like that. And then finally, we saw about 1,700 in person respond to want to do international missions or reach nations, as we kind of termed it. And so we partnered them with a lot of organizations, and it's quite encouraging to see the willingness of Kiwis to be missional around the country. So quick report on that was awesome. Big whirlwinds of a year, and now this year a lot of us are back now fully with Catalyst Movement, or we've also started this thing called Jesus Clubs. And so I'm going to pass on to Miriam and then Aaron actually to share about some stuff with Catalyst and Jesus Clubs this year. But yeah, just again, thank you guys so much for your support, and we look forward to praying together for some of these initiatives, but more so just for the nation and young people across the country. So yeah, I'm going to pass over to Miriam to share about some things with Catalyst this year.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. That's so good. And just to echo him, it is such a privilege to be here tonight. I'm just really grateful for the way that you guys pray for our nation and for the young people of our nation. And just like Michael said, it's really clear that God is doing a lot of things. He's really moving in those spaces. And so I'm just really briefly going to talk about another national tour that we are planning and moving towards for this year. And so, yeah, we are planning a 12-week tour starting in August, so only a couple of months away, which will go, starting up in the Northland, so up Kirikiri ways. Jeff will be up that way, and then coming all the way down to the very bottom of the South Island. And so the whole heart of this tour is again to work with youth groups and young adults groups and to equip them in evangelism tips, how to share the gospel, how to share testimonies with their friends, how to start faith conversations with those around them. Because I think this generation, they really want that. And there's a lot of young people, especially, who are really searching and seeking for God, but they don't always know where to go or where to find those things. And so we would really love to see every Christian, every believer being able to like simply articulate what the Christian faith is, what the gospel is, how God has moved in their lives, and we see that as one of the most effective ways that we can be equipping the next generation in all of those things. And so, yeah, again, we'll be taking a crew of maybe 20 young adults around the country, meeting in lots and lots of different youth groups and young adult spaces. And really, we're really expectant for God to use that, to move, to equip, and just continue what He's doing across our nation. And so we'd really love your prayer for that and all the planning, all the logistics. You guys, those are all the fun things that we have to do before we get on the road. And so, yeah, we'd really love your prayer around that. I'm going to pass to Aaron.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Aaron. As they mentioned previously, we Michael mentioned that we've been doing this thing called Jesus Clubs for this year, off the back of the Send. So following up with those 914 youth that responded to want to share Jesus in their high schools. And we spent quite a bit of time praying and designing this little training manual, all about practical training on like Bible, prayer, and outreach, and how to share Jesus in high school, really contextualizing it for the high school space. So, how do you pray in your high school, and what can you be praying for? Why would you read the Bible together at school? How do you do that? And how to do outreach practically. And so, for the past roughly 2.5 months, there's been a group of us on the road, and we've just finished the whole of New Zealand. So, we were in a bunch of different youth groups doing practical training, and we were in a bunch of high schools as well throughout the whole country. And it's been really, really cool to see that God's already moving in this space. We felt to develop this and go and help train and equip and encourage. But really, God's been doing all the work. Everywhere we go, there's kids already feeling from God to start these high school groups. And that's right across the nation, from like Dunedin, Timaru, Christchurch, up the west coast in Queenstown, all the way from like Whangarei, Tauranga, Wellington. We've been hearing it all across the board. So it's been really, really cool to see. And the whole point of them is that they're student led groups. It can be tough for adults and people outside of high school to get in every week and start and lead a group. But we really want to encourage and train high schoolers to reach high schoolers. And in that, have mentorship from youth pastors, be connected into their local churches. Um, so, yeah, we'd just really love to see prayer back in and what God's doing in this space. And that we really believe there's 500 high schools just about in New Zealand, and we believe that there could be a Christian group or an expression of Christian faith in every single high school. So really, we know how powerful prayer is, and how much we'd love you guys to continue what you're already doing and praying for the youth of this nation, but to really see the youth, empowered with courage and boldness to just share Jesus in their high schools and meet together. And so that's a bit about Jesus Clubs, and I'll pass it back to Michael to briefly finish off.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. And yeah, it's been so fun. I've been myself and Aaron and a few others have been traveling this whole time. So right, we've just literally finished on Friday. So did a big combined youth night in Hamilton. We're in Tauranga on Thursday, Cambridge on Wednesday, and I could go on and on about the last. It's been 2.5 months, maybe 14 weeks or so, right across the country. We could share so many testimonies of what's been happening. We've been blown away by the amount of groups starting, or the amount of young people just really with a heart to see, people know Jesus in their high schools. As Aaron mentioned, these are fully led by students, and we empower and encourage them to be supported by a mentor, whether that be their local youth pastor or a Christian teacher in school. And so our role is with Jesus Clubs is we kind of have that as a part of, we're supported by Catalyst Movement as a wider group. But we go around and just look to encourage and empower them to start it. And yeah, we've heard so many stories. Maybe a quick snapshot, and then we'll go into these prayer points. As an example, 2 weeks ago we were in Wellington. We're a part of this big youth pastors retreat that happened, and then this big combined night on Wednesday. We spoke at a couple of schools that week, and we heard of two girls' schools. So one called St. Mary's College in the city in Wellington, then one called Wellington East Girls' School. So both girls' schools. And off the back of the Send last year, there was a few girls that wanted to start these groups or Jesus clubs in their schools. And so at the start of this year, they got approval from their schools, and then they kind of promoted it in the notices. And St. Mary's College is only about 500 students. They had 70 girls like sign up for this Christian group, and we got to meet the leader of this group and pass on these manuals to encourage them. And they've been meeting every week to read the Bible. And then Wellington East Girls School, they had 71 girls sign up for this group. I don't know if it's a competition or not, but just really encouraging to see. And we met the leaders of both of them a couple of weeks ago, and they're still going. And that same week, we spoke in St. Orange College in Lower Hutt and Solway College in Masterton. And at the same time, they were both starting groups during that week. And we did this combined youth night. And one guy came up to me from Hutt Valley High School. He said, I literally started a group today at school, not even aware that we were in the night doing this stuff. And we had a group in Karanui High School in Greytown. And the principal said they couldn't meet and do this do a Christian group. But these young guys were like, we still want to do something. So they're reading the Bible together on the school field each week. And they're persevering to still honor the school, but see what they can do in that space. And that's just a few stories we heard from a few days in the Wellington region. And each week's been similar, just so many groups starting or hearing reports of passionate young people doing things in schools. So just be super encouraged, and thanks for your prayers for young people. And I guess that leads me to quickly introduce the prayer points. And I know we're heading to breakout rooms. So maybe you can see in the chat, if you open that up on the right, like I think a key starter point for us really is within Matthew 9:37 to 38. We, through all these tours over years, even personally, I would have had individual chats with well over 1,000 Kiwis on the street or wherever. And we find so much openness in New Zealanders for the gospel, for Jesus. Very rarely you'll have someone be negative towards us in that space, as long as you're relational and not too full on with it. But I guess just want to pray for God to send more laborers into full-time ministry across New Zealand and missions to the nations. Number two, would love prayer for this Catalyst tour that's coming up in August, September, October. So yeah, just to bless the traveling team. And we often do gather across so many nights, across so many churches with thousands of young people. And so pray for believers to be encouraged and sent out or filled with feeling equipped and passionate to share with their friends. And pray for people to be reached with outreaches. Number three, with Jesus Clubs, would love prayer for all these existing Christian groups across the country. But also pray that there'll be some sort of gospel expression or Jesus group in every high school in the nation, and led by students. Pray that it wouldn't be youth pastors or churches trying to like make it happen on their own, but actually God would inspire youth and give them the tools to step out and do it and lead it themselves. And then number four, just in general, I think always love to pray just for revival and awakening among young people, especially. For many to find faith, and churches, youth groups, young adult groups to be really full with people across the nation. And final thing is, we are hearing so many reports, and being in youth groups we've been in previous years, I think so many have grown this year. We've noticed there's been a real turn back of young people into churches. We've heard similar reports, I'm sure you guys too, from the UK or parts of the US, and I think we are seeing the starts of some of that in the nation. And so I think prayers are so powerful and valuable. So let's keep praying and believing for more tonight, if that makes sense. Yeah, thanks for hearing us out for a wee while, and look forward to jumping in breakout rooms.